All right, my friends, let's try this. This this was from the class yesterday, but I forgot to press record yesterday, so we're recording. And to tell you the truth, I did record it again, but I forgot to turn on the microphone. So it came out that you could see my lips move, but you couldn't see it. So those people who can read lips, the class was okay, but most people cannot. So I'm giving the class again in a shortened version. We're learning Parshat Bahar, and we began with the law of the Shemitah and the law of the Jubilee. With the Shemitah, says that all the lands have to rest, lay fallow, and you're not allowed to either even gather things into your house, and you certainly can't plant or harvest in a normal way, or work on your trees, and etc. And then that's every 7th year. And then in the 50th year, in other words, that comes after the 49th year, which is also a Shemitah year, the 49th year. And you can't work on the ground. Then there's another year where you can't work on the ground. And that's called the Jubilee year. Same laws. You have 2 Shemitah years in a row. But the Jubilee year, the Yovel, has additional things, and that is that a Jewish servant, he goes free. A Jewish servant that sells himself, whatever, that he can only be sold, or that he decides that he wants to be his master's servant forever. He wants to stay there forever. So forever in this case means only until the Jubilee year. So all the servants, they get freed on that year. And land in Israel, this was the time of the temple, the land was according to the tribes. So if you sold land to somebody, your house or something, you only sold it up to the Jubilee year. And then it would come back to you automatically. But you could redeem it earlier if you wanted to. But of course the house was only worth the amount of, it wasn't yours forever. So it was like buying a house, like, what do they call leasing? They have leasing for 10 years. That's how it was back then. Good. And then there's also other laws which deal with don't cheat your friend. And the Levites, they have their special cities, that 48 cities, and those should never be changed. Those cities, of course, after the temple was destroyed, that was all changed. And the other details dealing with different types of lands of the Levites when they're sold, if they come back at the end of the Jubilee year, and etc. I am God that took you out of the land of Israel, and to give you gave you the land of Canaan, and you will be to be a God for you. And the reason you're living in the land of Israel is not just to have a nice land. Here, first of all, Rashi says, anyone who lives outside of Israel, I am your God that gave you the land of Canaan to be for God. In other words, if you live in the land of Canaan, land of Israel, then I am your God. Rashi says, anyone who lives in Israel, I am his God. Anyone who lives outside of Israel, it's as though he serves idols. Okay, you have to understand what that means, because Rashi did not live in the land of Israel. Rashi himself didn't live in the land of Israel. And the Maimonides are great tzaddikim, holy people that did not live in the land of Israel. How many Jews were massacred that lived in Poland, lived in these other places? They didn't live in the land of Israel. Okay, there's people that get around explaining, how this is, but it means that living in the land of Israel is the reason you're supposed to live in the land of Israel, is in order to make God your God, not just to be in the land of Israel and do the opposite. And he says that's what he says, the Sforno, he said that the purpose of living in Israel, it should be in a way that everyone will help one another and work with one another, etc. In other words, the land has to be a godly place. And here it says, if a person lives in the land of Israel, even if it happens to be a city where there's more majority of Jews there, nevertheless, don't live outside of Israel, even a place where there are living Jews, because it's as though he has no godliness, etc. All right, now we're getting to this is what I wanted to get to here. If your brother gets poor, and so you should strengthen him with a ger of a toshav, if he is a dweller or a citizen, and he should live with you. And when you see your fellow Jew, especially in the land of Israel, and that he is beginning to lose his money, becoming poor, and so support him, help him. That's a simple meaning, what it says. Rashi says, don't allow him to fall. You see someone that's starting to lose his money, is losing his mood, he's one business after another fails. Don't let him fall. Because when he falls down, then it's going to be even more difficult to lift him back up again. So don't let the person declare bankruptcy. Help him out. Strengthen the person when you see that he's beginning to waver. Says Rashi, what is this like? This is like a person that goes and he sees his friend's donkey is like wavering under his burden. Jump off of your donkey, or get out of your car or wherever, and help him out. As long as the burden is on the donkey, then it's easier to help. And then one person even can help the donkey. But if the donkey falls on the ground, then even 5 people can't lift him up. It says you have to help everybody that's living there, even if he's a ger, even if he's only a ger, a temporary dweller, or a toshav. A toshav means a non-Jew that accepted on himself the 7 Noahide commandments. What is a toshav? A toshav is a non-Jew that accepts on himself not to serve idols, but nevertheless he does eat not kosher food. Kosher food is not one of the 7 Noahide commandments. A non-Jew can eat whatever he wants to and still be a good servant of God. Okay, we have an interesting Ramban. This is what I want to do, the Ramban and the HaChaim. Ramban says that a Jew you have to support a person when you see that he's falling down. This is a positive commandment. This is an actual commandment from God. In other words, to enliven, to support another person. And from here we can learn an interesting thing about self-sacrifice. Pikuach nefesh, if a person's life is in danger. If you see a person's life is in danger, then it's a positive commandment that you have to do everything to help him. Almost. What don't you have to do? Well, now we're going to see there's going to be a big argument. Let's look and see. From here it says like this, that your brother has to live with you. Now you can learn this 2 ways. Either your brother has to live as long as you're alive, or it means that your brother has to live with you. Your life is first. You live first, and your brother should live with you. This is going to be an argument between Rabbi Akiva and another rabbi. Here, let's see. Dorish ben Putiri says if 2 people were walking in the desert and one of them has a little bit of water, if you give it to both of them, so it'll keep them both alive for another hour or something like that, and then they'll die for sure. The place dwelling, they know where they're going. Their car broke down. Their cellular phones don't work. They're in the desert. It's blazing hot over there. They have another 3-4 hours to walk, and they have enough water that'll keep them alive for maybe another half an hour or something. They're both just. If both of them drink, then both of them will die. It says Bon Poturi, it's better that both of them should die. Drink, they should share the water. They'll have a little respite for 15 minutes, whatever, and both of them should die. It's better that both of them should die and that one person should not see his friend die. In other words, he's dead because I'm alive. That's what everybody thought until Rabbi Akiva came along. Rabbi Akiva said, no, same sentence. Your brother has to live with you. What does it mean? Your life is first before the life of your friend. If it's a matter of life and death, that's what it says. It means that you have to worry. A hadrle comes back. I'm sorry, midrasha. So in other words, your brother has to live with you. If it's a matter of life and death, then your life comes first. You have to save yourself. If you know that you can't possibly save both of you and you can only save one person, then save yourself first. And then afterwards, we'll see what happens. But nevertheless, you have no obligation that you have to die together with your friend. Better somebody should live. So says Rabbi Akiva. On the other hand, you have to think the other way around. If it's not a matter of life and death, it's just a matter that you'll suffer, right? You have 2 pieces of bread and your friend has no bread at all. And 1 piece of bread, you're going to go hungry the whole day, but you'll live. So a normal person will say, listen, I don't want to go hungry. What about this other guy? I'll just close my door. I won't see him. No, you can't do it. When do you have to think about, when does your life come first? If it's a matter of life and death, then true, you don't have to die together with your friend. You can save yourself. But if it's not a matter of life and death, just a matter of suffering, so you're supposed to suffer. You're supposed to give what you have to share it with somebody else. The Alter Rebbe points this out in the Tanya also. Then after that, it says that even more. What if you took from a person money by interest, give it back to him? That's what it means. He should live with you. You have to give back the reason. What if you happen to have stolen goods? Give it back. Give back what you're stolen. Okay, then he explains the next sentence. He's explaining the next sentence. Don't take neshech v'tarbit. You're not allowed to take a loan, to take interest on a loan. If you loan a Jew money, you're not allowed to take interest. Okay, now on one hand you can say, well, a Jew is so much better than a non-Jew. Come on, why? Okay, let's get this straight. In order to get this straight, you have to understand 2 things. Number one, it is forbidden to lie to a non-Jew. It is forbidden to cheat a non-Jew. It's forbidden to steal from a non-Jew. What about taking interest? You're allowed to take interest. So 1 second, taking interest is a natural, normal thing. Everybody takes interest. All the banks take it. Everybody takes interest. And it's reasonable, very reasonable and very justifiable that you should take interest. What do? You have money. You could take that money and invest it. You could do other things with it. And now you can't. You're giving your money away to somebody else. And this money now is not in your hands. You can't do anything with it. On the other hand, the other person can do things with it. He can invest in it. He can make money from it. So it's only natural. Why not? You're like sort of partners with the person. You give him a loan. Why shouldn't you benefit also? Right? You become partners with him. He has your money. So taking interest is a natural thing. So it says with a non-Jew, you can act naturally. But with a Jew, you have to go unnaturally. You're not allowed to take interest. God will take care of you. That's what he says. I am God. It says, I am God that took you out of Egypt to give this land of Canaan, and I will be for you for a God. In other words, I know what's going on. Don't worry about it. You loan this, you do what I say with your money, and I'll take care of your money. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you. Everything will be all right. Let's look a little bit. Here's an interesting thing, and this is what I wanted to get to from the let's go back to this previous law. If you see your fellow is stumbling, that he is becoming, how do you say, poor, so you have to help him and you have to support him. You have to help him and you're supposed to, right? If you muchachicha, it means that he's stumbling, he's becoming poor, and he's sticking out his hand to you, so you have to strengthen him. Right, the ger v'toshavim, the dweller and the citizen, and they should live with you. Okay, at first this is sort of not understandable. The language is very sort of weird in the Torah. What is it trying to tell you? It just should say, if you see your brother stumbling, then strengthen him. That's all. What does it mean? What's this thing about a ger and a toshav? A person who is a convert, a dweller, and they should live with you. All these words seem to be a little bit extra. Maybe they're hinting at something outside of the normal. Says the HaChaim, listen to this. This is talking about a person. This is speaking about the spirit of man. The brother, who's the brother? The brother of God. Who's the brother of God? Your soul. The part of God that dwells inside of me. But Omer, and it says, when this brother of God, in other words, my soul, when I see, which is the Ruach HaChaim, which is the life inside of me, which is what God put inside of me to keep me alive. If a person sees that his soul, in other words, is becoming weak and poor, that the Torah and the commandments is not enlivening it, it's not lighting it up. Because there's no such thing as poverty except for Torah and the commandments. A person can have millions of dollars, right? He's got what to live from, but he doesn't have what to live for. What's he living for? To make more money? What's the purpose? Is the money the goal, or is the money just a means? And if it's a means, what is it a means to? Right? It's a means to just have a good time, right? Although they're having a good time, that's just like 1 second. There's no real meaning to that. Having a good time is not having a meaning to it. You take a drug, you have a good time. It's a total bluff, a total, imagination. But you're having a good time. It says, no, the purpose of real meaning and real richness, that's learning the Torah and doing the commandments. Then that gives you a goal. You should have money also. Money is nice, but money is not the goal. What happens if a person, that's the real food of the soul, is Torah and the commandments for a Jew. For a non-Jew also, the 7 Noahide commandments, etc. In other words, to live a life that's meaningful, that's connected to some eternal values. If a person doesn't have light in the Torah, the commandments, then that darkens the light of the soul. And that's what it means. Because it says here, it sticks out its hand for help with you. What does it mean with you? Says the Or HaChaim, because the soul is with you, that's the reason why it's becoming poor. Another person had the soul, he would use it properly. He would shine it up with Torah and the commandments. The soul idea, and the soul, before it comes into your body, before it came into you, it shined from the end of the world to the end of the world. So now God is requesting from you, hey, you've got my brother over there. Do me a favor. Either take care of it or give it back to me. Like it says, a ruach teshuv, connect it back to me. And it's not saying that you should die. You're saying connect the soul back to me. I'm the one that gave it. The soul connected to the Torah and the commandments. That's the way to connect to me. That's what the rabbis say. Give it back to God like He gave it to you. That's what it means. Make it stronger. Make it strong, that you should return, reconnect your soul back to the place where it's supposed to be. Nothing enlivens a person's soul more than returning to God, doing tshuva. Okay, then at the end of the sentence it says that there's a ger and a toshav that's with you. The dweller and the inhabitor that's with you. So what does this mean? We said before what it means. It means that a person is a convert and that he's a non-Jew, that it takes the 7 commandments. Says the Or HaChaim, I got a little bit of a deeper idea. You should know that this is a big secret. This is a big mystery. Because sometimes there's souls that God puts them into a person, a soul of Ibor. God sometimes gives a person an extra soul, extra impetus or inspiration or power to do things. And like the example of this in Pinchas, it was in the section of Balak, so it says all the Jewish people were sinning, and the heads of the Jewish people, they were the chief sinners. They were leading all the Jewish people into doing these sins with the daughters of Moab, it says. So there stood up one Jew, a weak Jew, a normal person, and his name was Pinchas. And he took things into his hands and he speared the main sinner of the Jews. Don't try this at home. And he speared the main sinner, and he lifted his body up and he ran around. They did these superhuman things. It says, how did he do it? It says, because the soul of Elijah the prophet became embedded in his soul also. It came to help him. So the question is asked, what do you mean the soul of Elijah the prophet? Elijah the prophet lived about 600 years after this Pinchas lived. Pinchas was when the Jews were still in the desert. And Elijah the prophet was in the middle of the first temple, which was like the first temple was just built like 480 years after the Jews got out of Egypt. So that was like in the middle of it, 600 years. So it says there's a soul of Elijah the prophet that comes and helps people if they have to do something that's beyond their power, do something good. It says sometimes souls come into a person. That's one reason. It comes in, l'sibata yaduat, for mysterious reasons that only God knows. Sometimes souls come and live inside of a person in order to do some sort of a commandment, in order to join with this commandment and get merit from the person. Right? Sometimes a person, there's stories about people who were big sinners. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, there were stories about this, but it's also written in the Arizal. People that were big sinners and that they died and that they came back to participate in a commandment of somebody else in order to fix them up. Okay. Yeshabo, sometimes that's also the secret of reincarnation. There's an old book written by the Arizal, Sefer Gilgulim. Okay, these are things which they do exist, and they certainly are. And I know about as much as you do. The Yeshabo, some things that come from all sorts of miraculous reasons that God, in His wondrous, incomprehensibility, comes in order to fix up the soul. And that's why it says ger, v'toshav, v'chayimach. A ger, this corresponds to two different types of souls that come and live with you. Shaboim, without the awareness of a person, when a person strengthens himself to return to God, he wants to return to his consciousness, the Jewish normalcy, and he wants to return to the Creator. So it's very difficult. The person has all sorts of urges and desires and habits like that. So it says sometimes souls come and become, that's what the Or HaChaim is saying. I'm not saying this. The Or HaChaim knows what he's talking about. It says there's a place the Or HaChaim said about himself that he's the Mashiach. He said, the Mashiach Chaim Shemo. The Baal Shem Tov said that the Or HaChaim was higher than he was. He wanted to meet with the Or HaChaim in order to bring Mashiach. Whole story about the Baal Shem Tov wanted to come to Israel in order to. The Or HaChaim came from Morocco, originally, Ben Attar. So the souls come and are enclosed and help us in order to return to our senses. And you have to be very, very careful not to darken this soul, these souls that had been added to you. So this is like inspiration, motivation. That's what these souls give us. And that's what it says. Al tikach mito. That's the next sentence. Al tikach mito. Don't take neshech umarbit. It says a dead person, sheyesh bo ubama beneshech ubamarbis kasher. This is something I'm going to explain later on. And you should fear for your God. What does it mean? Because this light, which is part of these extra souls, you have to return it back pure as it was. And that's what it means. Your brother should live with you, that you should return your soul with the additional souls by means of adding in serving God the way that God says. It says, even though it says return exactly what I gave you, but that's the idea of adding on. Like I said before, in my book, Chefetz Hashem, the Or HaChaim wrote a book called Chefetz Hashem. I have the book. It's about the Talmud. It says, if you return things back to God as He gave it to you, this itself is a tremendous addition of life and light. You're attaching it back to its source. It's an incredible accomplishment. So that's the Or HaChaim. He translates these sentences the way to remind us that the Torah is given by God right now, and God is the source of all of these mysteries, and they were all revealed to the Jews at Mount Sinai. And little by little, we're revealing them and unveiling them. Have a good day with Mashiach now.